Do you want to see what's inside this turtle?
It's more little turtles!
Hey! My name is Sorts, and today we're going to be adding enemies to my game. So, last we left our heroes, Potnesia could run, jump, attack, take damage and stuff, but she needs enemies. So, she needs Goombas that she can turn into puddles as she goes through the levels. So, I need to create an enemy interface. I'm choosing to make an interface rather than just an enemy class so that Sorry, I hit the mic. I'm choosing to make an interface rather than an enemy class, so that way I can just keep reusing the same properties of an enemy every time I want to make a new enemy type. You see this face? Okay, you see this face right here? You should never see it in game. If you ever see this face in my game, something has gone very, very wrong. And that's because it is a placeholder for our interface class. Now, Godot is interesting because it doesn't really have true interfacing. I'm just choosing to use this class like an interface and choosing to never implement it, but like it compiles. Like the compiler will not stop me from putting this little freak in the game. Okay, I know what I just said about not seeing this little freak in game, but we are going to put him in as a placeholder so that we can add a drop rhoa function. Yes, I know.
The title of the thing is titular.
Wow.
That's it. It's the title of the game.
So rhoa means pomegranate or pomegranate tree in ancient Greek, and here is going to be the little pomegranate seeds that are the units of health that the character can pick up. So I need to make the enemy drop them when they die, probably about a third of the time. So we're going to make another placeholder and add it as a particle effect to be spat out when an enemy dies. Right, okay, so I'm new to particle effects. Let me mess with the physics a little. Okay, really quick, I want to show you the issue that I'm having. Okay, so you see how the rhoa is popping out of our enemy character, but it's passing through the ground, which is not correct. We want it to bounce onto the ground. So like particles in Godot are not super straightforward. In order to get them to collide with the tile map, you need to make sure that you have SDF collision turned on, which I do, and I've got collision turned on for the particle itself. And then you need to have this occlusion layer painted onto your tile map. So when I paint an occlusion layer, it should let the particle bounce off of the ground, right? What is that? Hello? Why is it bouncing all the way up there? Gotcha. So I found what the problem is. It's actually two problems. So first off, the reason why it's bouncing like that is because I have bouncing turned on, which I do want, but I don't think I want it to that degree. But now it's doing that. And what's even weirder is you can see if I'm looking at the tile map, it's gliding like one tile above the floor. And come to find out, it's doing that because there's another setting under collision. The base size. If I set it to 0, it's colliding with the floor now. Now, obviously I don't want it to collide like right there. And then it just bounces in place as well. I need it to skitter to a stop. Gang, I'm not even gonna hold you. I was so tempted to ignore this error. Like, it's barely bouncing and I really feel like no one would even notice as they're playing the game. But like I said in one of these other game devlogs, I really want a certain level of quality in this game. It's okay if it looks like a first game. It's okay if it looks beginner, but I don't want to let little things like that hurt the overall quality. So we're gonna fix it. Heart of the cards, we're gonna fix it. Come to find out, the bouncing problem is not really a problem with the bouncing at all. What's happening is the rhoa is slipping through the floor before the collision can detect it, and then once it realizes, oh shoot, it's colliding, it just puts it back up in its previous position really fast and hopes that I totally didn't notice, even though I absolutely just noticed. So it kind of gives the appearance of bouncing. What it's really doing is falling over and over again. So all I have to do to fix it is increase the frame rate of when it is detecting the collisions. That's it. That's what was causing the error. I know it looks like it only took 20 seconds to you guys, but I spent so long trying to debug this, and that's all I needed to do is just to fix the frame rate. Okay, so the particles work now. But fixing the particles created a new error for the sprite. Okay, so new problem. The particle works now. I've got the collider working, but when you run the game, the enemy isn't there and it just spits out the rhoa. So I'll put a breakpoint here and see why it's deleting it, because when drop rhoa is first called, look, there goes our guy. He's there as he should be. I bet it's going to be at this queue free. Okay, then that's it. That's the problem. I think queue free is deleting the node altogether. So I should just be able to get rid of queue free, and then it should just spit out the rhoa once and keep our main villain on screen.
Fixing the enemy sprite created another particle error.
Luckily, the second particle error was much simpler than the first. I basically just needed to include a boolean to let the game know, hey, once an enemy has died, they do not need to keep expending rhoa. They just need to spit it out one time for the one time. However, and booleans cannot be a fix for everything in this game. So right here, I'm currently using a boolean is attacking to let the game know when the enemy should be taking damage. This does not work very well. Basically, there's no way to guarantee that the boolean is being set and checked before the character's hitbox has finished passing through the enemy's hurt box, and vice versa. Now, some of y'all might be like, why are you using booleans if you're using hit and hurt boxes? Just use the detection within the hit and hurt boxes. And it's because most tutorials for like starting Godot will tell you to make your main character an animated sprite 2D.
Brother, this guy stinks!
Good lord, I don't know why they would tell you to do this. Okay, animated sprite 2Ds suck at being animated. Why are they even called that? Because if you are animating your character, okay, if this is your main character, they're probably going to have an attack, a crouch, a jump, and it's really hard to get any part of your character or their collision shape or their hit and hurt boxes to move with them if you're using an animated sprite 2D. Animated sprite 2Ds are very good for basic movements, like an enemy that bops up and down. If you want to animate your sprite, don't use an animated sprite 2D. What works better is using a sprite 2D and then putting them in an animation player, which makes it infinitely easier to create and move your character's collision shapes, hitboxes, hurt boxes, etc. You have to create the hit and hurt boxes yourself. Really just both nodes extend in area 2D, which is great for collision detection. For the hurt box, which is receiving damage, we tell it to detect when a hitbox is entered. If the owner of the hitbox has a method called take damage, then call that take damage function to take however much damage that particular hitbox delivers. For the hitbox, we just need to initialize how much damage the hitbox will do. So when we initialize Pontanesia, we also initialize her hitbox to do 1 point of damage. We also make sure that her hitbox is only active when she's attacking, so that walking into enemies alone isn't enough to kill them. Alright, so that is enough to actually use our interface now, so no more blue baby. Now I need to create our first actual villain, the most villainous villain to have ever villained. Wheat. Okay, I understand like wheat's not really that menacing, but this is the tutorial and I need to teach the player how to use their scythe. That being said, there is a problem, because of course there's a problem. Right now, the wheat blocks the player's path, as it should. That's the rule. That's the goal now. But if the player is a huge dork and decides to attack the wheat while running against it, they can slip through. After doing a bit of research, I found out this is a specific issue with character body 2D. If you want to make something block the player, you need to make it a rigid body 2D instead. And I don't want to create a whole nother enemy class just for this one specific type of enemy, because that was the whole point of making it an interface. So I was like, okay, maybe rather than have the wheat block her, maybe it hurts her and bounces her back. But like, why would wheat hurt you? I need a plant. What's a plant that would... Athysol! The answer is athysol. I bet some of y'all said cactus, but I don't think they had cactuses in ancient Greek, so... But they did have thistles. I looked it up, they did have thistles. I'll also be able to repurpose these later to use as spikes in other areas of the map, so that's really good. I added a few smaller things off screen, like I replaced the placeholder, rhoa texture with a proper texture, and I made it so that when the wheat is killed, it'll explode into a bunch of little thorny leaves, just like in Hollow Knight. So excited, it looks like a real game. And I know just like one static plant enemy is not super exciting, but hopefully now in the future it'll be easier to implement even more enemies because I've laid a lot of this base work. As development continues, it should be easier and easier to add things because I've had a solid foundation, which is why I don't want to make little shortcuts or make little quick fixes so that I can have a solid foundation to work off of. The next things I'm going to need to implement are allowing the player to actually pick up the rhoa, let that rhoa be added to the player's health and implement a UI to add to that health, and allowing the player to die, which also means figuring out spawning back in. If you want to continue watching me develop this game, be sure to hit the bell icon, because subscribing is not enough to tell you when I actually post. You have to hit the bell or else YouTube probably isn't going to tell you when I post. If you have any suggestions or critiques or just want to influence the direction of the game, please comment down below. I love getting comments. I love hearing what you guys think about the game I'm developing. It really motivates me to keep working on the game. I'm gonna make the game no matter what, but it's extremely motivational. As always, thank you, lovely subscribers, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
They've all got little faces.